So
Because you do have a 6 o'clock meeting you're running.
that's true. So it's about 10 after. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:10.
5:08.
5:08. We need an approval of the agenda, please.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I second.
Okay, any additions, subtractions, whatever to our agenda? Hearing none, all those that approve the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We now have an agenda. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. They've knocking down our door, so we'll keep moving. Board professional development. So we are looking for RSVPs for the PG 101 board training, which is supposed to be happening on September 15th.
And I think you 3 have already RSVP'd.
Okay, so that's from 10 to 5.
From 10 to 5 at
Lilac
Lilac
Inn. Okay. Great.
I'm gonna do my best to make it.
Right.
Great. We hope
And we
to
understand that you may be late if you do.
Okay.
Just Lori and Brenda? Did you
Yes,
said
all
you
3 of us.
3, okay.
Yeah, they've RSVP'd.
All right, so
Doesn't
moving
necessarily mean
forward
yes.
to the consent agenda. There's a lot on it.
Consent agenda does take action.
Okay, right. So a couple things that we need to make sure we understand is that under policies for action, under the adopt, RNESU policy governance policies, this is our second reading of that.
Which makes it official.
Which makes it official that we would be going policy governance on this board. And then the rest of them, hopefully you've had a chance to read them, are either renewing or revising. And our first readings for the non-discrimination policy, the school bus transportation policy, student attendance, and student expression.
Student expression is a brand new state mandated policy,
Okay?
so it's the first time you've seen that one.
And then all of the next ones are we're rescinding the evaluation of the superintendent. Not that we're going to not evaluate the superintendent, but it's required. It's not necessary. It doesn't need to be policy. Most of these are now law, and that's why we don't need them.
Or they should be there, or they're operational.
Operational. So board operational goals, organization and operation of the boards, board policy development, revision and adoption, board review of administrative rules and regulations, presentation and adoption of the supervisory union budget, which is going to become an admin memo, preschool bus transportation policy, which is also an admin memo, and personnel recruitment selection is going to be an admin memo. We are also approving the negotiation committee representation for teachers and para and bus drivers, which consists of John Rasmussen, John Rasmussen, Lisa Kenyon, Pam Fuller, and Jeff Spalding. Now, if you're so inclined and still want to join, feel free, but tonight we are approving those 4 members. So, anybody want to make a motion about the consent agenda?
You don't have a quorum.
Oh, that's right. So we have to keep moving. So incidental information. Let's talk about the climate survey.
All right, we can talk about that. So you have a copy of the climate survey. What I gave you in your packet and what's on the web for the community to see is the summary of the parent survey results and the summary of the student survey results and the summary of the staff survey results. And those tell you about the areas of strength and areas of focus according to each of those groups. But I also gave you a PowerPoint that is an overview of everything. And I'd like to briefly walk through that. So this survey was given last spring. We had a large number of people participate in it. You'll kind of see that as we go through. And one of the things that was very gratifying is that it shows that 88% of our employees enjoy working for the supervisory union and would recommend working here to their friends. And that's a really
Very good number.
wonderful
That's awesome.
number. We had about 400, we have about 400 staff, and about half the staff replied to the survey. Out of that half, 85% agreed that our community supports education, 70% rated us better, same or better than neighboring schools. Hi, Becky. 78% felt that we operate as a team, 83% felt that we work hard to improve, find ways to improve, and 87% agree that coworkers are willing to help out. So it's really a nice climate kind of response from staff. There also was a very strong response about safety at work and having the appropriate materials and supplies and training to do their work. So you have a copy of this in your agenda. And then our staff is very engaged and committed with, again, well over 85% expressing pride in the school, feeling like their work contributes to the success of the school, and it's personally satisfying and reasonable. So those are great measures to go into the year. But then pulling back and looking at the staff, parent, and student feedback, it's great to recognize the strengths, and I'll point them out, and the one-pagers also point out the strengths of each, but it's not enough. I mean, the whole point is that we want to keep getting better. So we have identified, based on the results, 5 areas where we'd like to continue to improve, and that's in the areas of bullying and discipline, adult-student relationships, parent engagement, school or SU pride, and academic depth. Those are the areas that we felt that there was still room for improvement. So talking about bullying and discipline, it was disturbing to us that 41% so I should tell you that our 4th through 12th graders took the survey. 2/3 of the 4th through 12th graders took the survey. So 431 kids, 4th through 12th grade, out of 716. And out of those 2/3 of the students, 41.5% said that they are either sometimes or never satisfied with the school's effort to prevent bullying. Some of that could be understanding what all the different roles and responsibilities and educating people in what we can do, but it's still not an acceptable response. Whatever the reason, it's not acceptable. So that's something we want to highlight and continue to work on. So I wanted to point out some of the things that we do for mental health supports for our students. We do have psychoeducational evaluations available. Thanks to the Otter Valley Board, we have guidance services in all of our schools. The small schools have gone without for many years. Our schools all have partnerships with either Rutland County Mental Health or the Counseling Services of Addison County, with mental health therapists and case managers right in the buildings. All of our elementary schools, and actually the high school, now have student support personnel in the buildings. We do partner with parents, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, in responses to bullying. And this summer, we trained both all administrators and a select group of student support personnel in threat assessment practices, so that we can quickly respond and have a procedure to respond to threats as they come forward. We also support our staff with social emotional supports, starting primarily with recognizing that trauma is a huge component of what's happening that kids are bringing into the classroom, and very honestly, adults do as well. So giving professional development to our staff about a trauma-informed classroom and how to work with students who are experiencing trauma in their lives. Annually, we train our staff on harassment and bullying policy and interventions, but this year we increased that training to our bus driver. We had some problems last year with some harassment and bullying happening on the buses that was pretty significant. And our bus drivers were asking to understand what we're doing in the school around both responses to that and positive behavior responses. So we did a day training with them. We offer a Path Wellness program and employee assistance programs also for our staff. We are bringing positive behavior interventions and supports into all of our schools. And we have hired a SU social emotional coach to support the adults and help the adults in working with kids with emotional needs. So what else would we like to do? We already had pockets of the mindfulness curriculum across our elementary schools, but we want to be more intentional about teaching mindfulness K to 12. Again, positive behavior support systems and bringing in restorative justice. Some of our schools do it, some don't, so we want to be more intentional there. We asked adults to be present in the hallways. That's where quite often that's where things occur. And then we have introduced the kindness rule across the district at our convocation. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. We are suggesting that classrooms have classroom greeters. It's really important when kids walk in the room that somebody is smiling at them and saying hello. And again, bringing in the restorative justice practices. Also, we plan to host later this fall an SU-wide parent dialogue night about bullying and harassment and discipline policies and response. Both an education type I'd like a panel with all of our principals present, and an education portion and a question and answer portion. I will ask for help in getting parents there, and we will ask if we can have it videotaped as well so people can see it afterwards if they can't make it because it's difficult. And then for students, the positive behavior support system is an intentional way of teaching what behaviors we expect from kids and actually practicing it. And again, we'll be doing that all across the district. And we want to identify a couple of district-wide events, like an all-student kindness day across the SU, or a student voice video where students say, what does kindness mean to you? And we have little video clips available. But an intentional approach is really what it's about. And then really focusing on the strong adult-student relationships, which I will move into next. And our goal is for 100% of our students to feel connected to somebody in the district. Ideally many, but somebody. What we discovered in the student survey of 4 to 12-year-olds, 4 to 12th graders, 25% said they sometimes or never have a good relationship with an adult in the schools. That's 25%. Now, you can flip it and say 75% do, not good enough. We want it to be more. 30% don't feel comfortable participating in class. 30% don't feel heard or don't feel they can be themselves. And this one really bothered me. 58% said that they sometimes or never enjoy going to school. We need to turn that around. 47% they always have at least one adult they can talk to, with another 15% saying sometimes. 39% say they sometimes or never feel they belong in school, and 32% feel that their classmates care about them sometimes or never. So these are areas that we really want to focus on changing. I went through these statistics with the teachers, and that's why you have a slide saying reflection, and I asked them to stop and reflect and what resonated with you and what do you agree with. And I collected their comments, and so I just put that slide in to tell you that we did that. One of the adult-student relationship things, again, and something we're focusing on to change the climate of the school, is the kindness rule. Basically, you learned it in pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. If you are within 5 feet of another person, adult or student, walking down the hall, please greet them with a smile and verbally. If you're within 10 feet, at least greet them with a smile. The intention is to be intentional, to really reach out and make that connection with other people, and for the adults to model that as well for students. All of our schools are focusing on kindness in this first month as a character trait, and so we want to make sure that our adults are modeling that too. And it's really easy to walk down the hall and be busy or on your phone or, you know, thinking about what you're teaching next class. It's not like it doesn't happen, but let's stop and think about being intentional about, even if you don't know their name, you can say, hi, how you doing? You know, something like that.
Was, do you have was there a theme with the reflections?
I just got them typed up, so I don't have that for you yet.
You know what I mean? I just didn't know.
What I noticed was, there was true reflection. Like, people were really surprised at the student statistics, that students didn't feel as connected as the adults thought students felt connected. And then some suggestions, and then some affirmation that we really do need to work on this.
That's great.
So,
That's great.
yeah. So then for parent engagement, we again want to be intentional about engaging parents, and again, hosting that fall SU-wide parent engagement night, focus on bullying and harassment and our discipline policies, and looking for other ways to increase intentional engagement. Let's Talk is taking off well within the district. This fall, we've added a text number. So if people just put this text number in their phones, they can text us. They don't have to go to the website. They can just text us. We'll figure out where it goes. It'll probably go to me, and I'll disperse it. But you don't have to necessarily.
Easier to use.
Yeah, it's immediate, you know, if you're right in the moment. And we also want to seek an increase in parent and community volunteering and engagement, which leads to school pride. School pride was really varying. Different schools had different amounts of school pride. It's not like it's a whole SU-wide issue. But Otter Valley in particular board is looking at unity within the merged school district and really wanting people to be proud of all the schools. And there were enough comments in the survey that we felt this was good to do as well with the staff and with students, is to have an intentional district-wide school pride approach. And to that end, we're working on a strategic communications plan with Allison Popa, the consultant that we've been using for the Otter Valley Task Force. And again, we're identifying 1 or 2 SU-wide events that unify our communities, both Barstow and the 6 Otter Valley towns. Also, both school boards, as you know, are taking on this intentional engagement with the community and pride in the schools as well. Barstow through its communication and presence at community events, Otter Valley through its task force recommendations. A resounding theme among parents and some staff is that academic expectations are perceived as being too low. Responses were really varied among parents and students, but we felt that this is something we should look at, and we should look at the reality of the expectations as well as the reality of what we're sharing about what students are doing. So for example, it was difficult to know this. If your child has a teacher who doesn't assign homework, does that parent therefore think academic expectations are low because the child doesn't have homework? Or is it actually what's happening in the classroom? So we have to tease that out, because homework is not necessarily an indication of high expectations. So we have to tease that out. And to that end, we actually are starting to look at a number of data dashboard systems that we can pull we want to go beyond the SBAC data and into the formative classroom assessment data and really see what's going on with the child. And so we're working on identifying a software that can do that for us. We have data teams at all of our schools that the principals have been and will be leading, looking specifically at the academic data that comes in. And then we also really want to focus on what's called the first tier of instruction. So the classroom teacher is the first tier of instruction, and are we providing the best possible professional development for and support for our teachers to provide the best first tier of instruction, and then for those students who are not successful in that tier, then we look at our multi-tiered systems of supports. So we're looking into all of that. So I have a chart that summarizes all of those steps that we're planning on taking. And then I talked as well with the teachers about my commitments in all of this, which my intentional engagement with staff is to continue to visit the schools regularly. I'm attending 3 faculty meetings throughout the year at every school. The Labor Management Committee spent last year exploring and has now taken off, and that's representatives of the Teachers Association, Para-Bus Driver Association, and the non-union support staff that I meet with a couple of administrators on a monthly basis, looking for ways to improve the climate and communications. And then I want to make individual connections with our staff, because I feel as though if I'm really focused on supporting our principals and our staff, that will carry out into the climate with staff and students. And I wrote down the kindness challenge for you. And ultimately, to meet our mission and vision, we really need to be intentional about all the things that we're doing. Any questions?
So you had about half the faculty. Is there a reason why maybe you didn't get maybe 75% on that end? Is it? Well, it's obviously optional.
It was optional.
After they see reflections and everything, maybe they kind of.
They might do it next time around.
Yeah.
So this is the second climate survey I've done.
Yep.
I tried to see if I could correlate the first year to the second year, and I really can't. And the next time I do one, I've been doing one every 2 years since I've been here. So the next one I'm doing might not actually be this exact survey, because the state is putting out a climate survey, and I want to see what it says before I continue using this one. But we did a very intentional reach out to, and we got great results from numbers of parents and students, but to staff as well, that we really need to hear their voice. And I'm hoping that as they see the results of it, that might encourage more to
You
participate
do it
next time.
every year, or every 2 years?
2 years. It's a pretty huge undertaking.
Do students get a chance to know what the results were?
Not yet. So principals were going to go back and talk about individual school results with their individual staff. And we've been having a conversation about how do students hear the results as well. So that hasn't happened
Yeah,
yet.
because I just envision that if I was sitting with a bunch of people and I heard that like 3/4 of the people I was sitting next to didn't feel comfortable at school, I might do something different
Yeah, yeah,
if I knew that as a peer.
right,
I agree.
right.
I think students should know the results. I'm glad
There's a
plan.
program that Sandy Hook Promise, out of the Sandy Hook School, has started in their anti-bullying activities. That's called Start with Hello. And some of our students are doing that. Like, look around you, see if there's anyone sitting by themselves. Go over, say hello, start with hello. And it's also a really intentional program that a few of our elementary schools are signing on to this fall.
And the old federal Title IV funds
Yeah.
used to require a student committee to review results and give feedback. And
Forgotten that.
I used to have the job of having the parent committee and the staff committee and the student committee and a couple of years. And it just blew me away how the kids, show the kids the data and they come up with, I mean, they know
Yeah.
what's needed, where it's needed. And whereas the adults would take hours
Yeah.
to even get close to what the kids would say instantly. So I think it's great to involve
Yeah.
students in all of this.
I wonder if that's something I could do here at Otter Valley, have a lunch and invite students.
That's what we used to do. Well, in fact, I went to the alternative school. It was one of my favorite places to go to get feedback from kids who had been kicked out of school on the school climate and safety.
Yeah, I
And,
think-
oh my goodness, they were brilliant. They
Yeah, it has to be a mix
sharp,
of.
right on. Yeah, and then I would also go to a group of the high achieving students, that weren't in trouble, just to
Right.
get.
Therapy. Yeah.
But regardless of which students, the students can take care of business in an hour that it takes adults.
That's
many.
because adults have more agendas.
I don't know. I don't know what it
I
is.
swear that's
Yeah.
probably what it is.
I don't know.
I hate to cut it short, but we
Yep.
have a half an hour and we need to, we have a lot of more ground to cover. But thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, looking forward to, so we're gonna go back to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is really long. I hope you had a chance to look over all of the policies that we're rescinding and adopting, and that we are adopting policy governance if we say okay to the consent agenda. So, having said that, can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Well, yeah, well, I always like to ask. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, consent agenda has passed. So we'll go back to the superintendent's report. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss? Okay, doesn't look like we have anything under board management delegation. But the next thing is our pre-K voucher request.
So you have received a new request, asking for their child to attend.
Well, it says outside the district.
Outside the district
Outside, right.
in Lincoln,
Yeah.
Vermont.
Yeah.
And to receive your subsidies. You had a request, I did not provide the same materials I did last time because you just considered it in the spring. You have a boundary that has been set, and we do have space available in our programs.
That was the question I was gonna
Yeah.
ask.
Right.
Has anything changed since?
No,
There's nothing, okay.
nothing has changed.
Since we voted.
The state might change in the future, but at the moment, nothing has changed at the state level.
Since the meeting that we discussed this.
Right, yeah. there's no more
Boundaries are
changes.
boundaries.
Your last, for your information, your last decision was challenged to the education secretary who upheld your decision.
Right. So is there any discussion? Is there a motion? I guess we should start with a motion,
If there's one.
if there's a motion.
don't want to seem heartless, but it sort of feels like there's
I'm kind of feeling the same way you
maybe
are.
not a motion because we already have a.
I didn't see anything in their letter that specifically said that they had a reason to, other than convenience, that would cause them not to be able to attend preschool in our district.
Yeah, the only part in the letter that sort of confused me was it said something about being not being able to, so that's why I asked.
Well, and one of them works in Castleton, so could stop in Whiting, drop off the kid, and head to school. So, at this point, I don't see a need for a motion, but I will defer to you guys.
I feel the same way.
So we don't need to do anything.
Right, it would just
Because we're
remain,
just upholding what we already decided.
exactly.
That was
Yeah.
in consideration.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because if we were to change our policy midstream, our boundaries would not mean anything.
Well, and I'm sure there are others that would want the same benefit.
But I'm pretty sure you'll find there will be.
Yeah, exactly.
We had this discussion when we
Yeah.
talked about the boundaries.
Right. Okay, so hearing no action on this, we will move forward. And you'll let the family
I certainly
know?
will.
Thank you. Let's see, the work plan. Review and update our annual RNESU work plan.
And also the next one, if you would, the executive limitations.
Right.
So I did not put them on there. So
No,
I
was
would
looking for a
recommend
work plan.
bringing you 2.4 budgeting and planning at your September meeting for first look and then final acceptance at your October meeting.
So you'll follow the same schedule as
Same
OVU
schedule
and
as Otter
DU.
Valley and
Yep.
Barstow's following.
Okay,
Then 2.1 in November, December, and that's treatment of parents and staff.
okay.
2.8. I don't remember what it is.
Is one parents and one staff? I felt
No,
like there were
two, no,
different-
2.8.
They are different, students and parents.
But
And
2.8.
2.2 is students, so
2.1 is staff and 2.2 is parents?
Yeah,
vice versa?
that's what I mean. So
Yeah,
I think what
2.8
you
is
just said
something
was
else.
parents and staff, but
Okay,
it's
here we
really.
go.
It's just
So
Two.
to start with, we'll start with financial planning and budgeting
Yeah.
Right.
in September, October. Then we'll move to treatment of students and parents
Right.
in November, December. And then we will move to communication and support to the board, and I move that to March, April, so that if you have any new board members, it's a good place for them to start.
Yep.
And then treatment of staff
Right.
for May and
Okay.
June. So that's what I recommend that you stick with.
Yep. Okay,
And that's the same as the Barstow one too,
Yes.
which will be a little less confusing. If they were-
Well, yeah.
If they run in sync, it'll be a little easier.
Yes.
right.
There's no, those were good selections too, for timing.
Thanks. I thought so. Yeah.
And you are
March
already
one.
designating your VisBit VHI proxy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, you could do that. You could choose to do that. No, that's not on here, is it?
No,
So
it's
that's
not.
that has to be done by September.
18th?
Thinking about what you said about what has to be done. That's your only definitive in
Okay.
September.
Okay.
You could do that tonight.
Could we do that tonight, even though we didn't add it to the agenda to begin
I
with?
think you can.
Okay. So why don't we do that then? So to, our proxy, is that normally,
Well, it's usually a board member who's willing to attend that meeting or that conference.
okay?
It can be any board member, it doesn't have to be from your particular board, and if there isn't a board member, you can designate me, because I'll be there.
It's kind of hard to, I don't know if there'll be anybody who wants to go, so.
You could perhaps make a motion to designate an interested board member from any of the three boards, and lacking that, designate
Yeah.
the
That.
superintendent.
Okay, what she said. Are you making that
moved.
motion?
That's the September 18th?
You're doing, that's
We're
on the
gonna
agenda.
do it right now.
Right.
We're-
But
Yeah,
the meeting is October
Oh.
it's
Okay.
October.
26th or something.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those that approve making our VisBit VHI designee,
An
what she
interested
said?
board member.
That's
or-
right, or the superintendent. please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you. And then the only other thing that I see on here is to finalize our annual board board self-evaluation.
So, let me see what we've got here. Oh, it's at the bottom. Is it at the bottom?
I don't see it here.
I don't either. So, you're not doing that.
Okay. So we'll get new policies at our next meeting?
Yes,
Okay, our next meeting is here, September 18th,
at the moment.
at the moment. Again at 5 o'clock before the Otter Valley meeting.
And we will be in the library because that way PEG TV just sets up
Makes
one
sense.
place.
Yeah, it's really
Right.
nice.
Yep. So, anybody else have anything to come before the board? Hearing nothing, I would take a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Go for it.
All
I'll
right,
second
we got
it.
awesome, and we are adjourned at
5:38.
Yeah, there we go.
5
Thank you,
o'clock,
everybody.
5 o'clock, and they're gonna be in here.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, there's those.